Let's look at an example of polymorphism. Polymorphism is a fundamental concept in object-oriented programming that allows objects of different classes to be treated as objects of a common superclass. It enables a single interface to represent multiple types of objects, making the code more flexible and reusable. Polymorphism encourages code reuse, and it makes it easier to extend the functionality of existing classes without modifying their implementation. In my development environment here, I have set up 3 classes. The monster class is the base class, and the dragon and goblin classes are the derived classes. The monster class has a method called attack, which it and its derived classes can use. The dragon class has a unique attribute element, and the goblin class has a unique attribute weapon. What I am going to do to demonstrate polymorphism is called method overriding. I am going to create methods in the dragon and goblin classes with the same name as the method attack that's in the base class, and whenever a monster, dragon, or goblin object calls the attack method, a different version of the attack method will be called depending on the object type that is calling it. In the dragon class, I am going to give it the attack method, and it is going to print its name, breathes, and then the element that this dragon has. And in the goblin class, the goblin's attack method is going to print its name and then swings A and then whatever weapon I give it. However, unlike previous examples where I created an object and then whatever variable name I gave that object, I use that and dot notation to call its methods, I am instead going to pass the object into a function. The function will use the parameter I give it to call the attack method for each object. So down here outside of any of the classes, I am going to define a function called attack, and I am going to give it the parameter monster, and this is going to be the object that I pass into this method. And then in this method, I'm going to refer to that parameter and use its dot notation to call the attack method. And for my monsters, I will create a rat, which will be a monster object, and he will just simply have the name rat and 10 health. Then I will create a goblin, which will be a goblin object, and his name will be Goblin. He will have 100 health, and he will swing a sword. And then I will create a dragon, which will be the dragon object. Its name will be Dragon. It will have 200 health, and we'll say that it breathes fire. And now I am going to call this attack function right here, and each time I call it, I am going to pass in one of these objects that I just created. And then depending on the object that I pass in here will depend on which attack method gets called. Either the goblin's attack method, the dragon's attack method, or the monster's attack method. So down here below my objects, I will call attack rat and attack goblin, and finally attack dragon. And when I run this, we'll get the outputs rat attacks, goblin swings a sword, and dragon breathes fire. As this example showed, polymorphism allows us to call a single function, and as long as the arguments we pass into it have the necessary attributes, it will work with different objects. Now, I may have used the monster base class with 2 derived classes, but Python does not care what I pass into this function. It just cares if it has the attack method. So if I were to pass in like an integer value here, 10, which does not have an attack method, I'll get this error. Attribute error, int object has no attribute attack. Now, if I were to create an entirely new class that is not derived from monster, so it's completely new, but it also has the attack method, then it will work just fine with our attack function that is outside all of our classes. So I created this cat class, and it takes a name parameter, and then it has an attack method that prints out the cat's name, attacks the string. And down here, if I were to get rid of this rat here and turn it into a cat, say cat equals, and I will give this cat the name Mittens. And down here in this first attack call, if I pass it this cat object and run this now, I get Mittens attacks the string. And this is the purpose of polymorphism, which is to allow objects of different classes to be treated as if they belong to a common class, providing a consistent interface for interacting with them, meaning that you can use a single method or function, which I've done here, to operate on objects of different types as long as those objects implement the required methods or attributes. So in this case, the attack method, which my monster class has, the derived dragon and goblin classes have it, and then this cat class that has nothing to do with the monster class also has it, and they all work equally as well on this one function.